Hi everybody. Everybody else seems to be doing their end of the year review. So I thought I would indulge myself and do my own. As I seem to got quite a lot of hits now on my channel. Up to 1,242,887 views and 1,795 subscribers. So I thought I would indulge myself and show you what equipment I've changed over the year and show you how my system's set up. This is my little book I made up for my hobby. I also do antique radios, and I used to always like to make up a little book to remind me of what I've got, because I got a terrible memory, right? So first of all, I wanted to know how good my ears were, because you know, what can I tell you? Anyway, so this is the frequency response of my ears, so I know what I'm actually hearing, although that is not the whole story. But anyway, I went and had my hearing tested. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I want to see. So then I made this book up about the Garrard turntables and all the different models. And this is my father. This is why I got this turntable, because my father had one the same, and this is a picture of his turntable and his stereo system he built back in the 50s. There he is working on the cabinet there. And that's not me in the photo. This was taken like bit later. I think this was about 1966 or something. That picture was taken. And there's the turntable again in a different cabinet. And that's a Transcriptor arm in that cabinet on there. And that tube amp my dad built himself. And that's the same cartridge there. He started off with a Pickering V50. Pickering V15, something like this one. I think that was the first cartridge he had. And they're the ones that have the brush on the end. And then he progressed up to the Shure V15. Hold on a second, I'm just grabbing it off the arm so I can show you. This is the Shure V15 cartridge. I recently found it this year, which was absolutely marvellous. It was in a box somewhere. My dad's been dead quite a long time now, but I actually, looking through the stuff, I found the cartridge. The Starlist was gone, but I got an SAS cartridge because I heard that they were pretty good from different people, and that's the box it came in. It's a VN15E, and they're quite expensive, made by Jayco. I got this one actually straight out of Japan. Inside the box right now is a 78 needle I've got, so I can also play 78. Some of my videos on my channel are 78s played with this too. This is the Shure V15 Mark II, and even after all these years it still works very well. So I have that set up on my shorter arm on my Garrard 301. So looking through the book more, that, by the way, that's my dad's old, he got one of the although he built his own tube amp, which he should have kept, which he just threw away afterwards, and he built all the cabinet himself and everything. That's it there. Of course, the solid state came out, he wanted the transistor, and he brought this Leek. Leek were good for their tube amps, but this was a bunch of crap. Terrible amp. Anyways, so going through, there's more stuff about Garrards, and you know, because I had to research everything before I did up my turntable. So the first part, I've got it all about the parts list there and everything that's needed, the breakdown, so I could see what I was doing, the motor, and that's a little bit from the newspaper, the Swindon, where the where they used to make all the turntables. There's all the Garrards lined up there. I don't know how well this will come out in the video, but this is only done on my iPhone. So different articles and stuff, and that's the 401 turntable, which I don't particularly like myself. And that's, I think that's about the end. So you see the difference in the size of the motor between the two, the earlier model and the later one. And actually, the first turntable I remember my dad having was an automatic one like this. And I can barely remember. I was like 3. I was born in 1953, so I'd been about 1956. So that's I actually got one of those turntables in the garage. I started doing up but never got any further with it. So my other turntable is the Technics 1700 Mark II. That's playing away right there now. I've got the volume really low, and that's it there. So let's get it a bit better here. There we are. So I've got all the information I can about that. So I know what I'm doing. As I said, I have a terrible memory, so I need to keep a list of everything. And keep going. Now the reason I've got this one is because I have an Audio-Technica knockoff of this turntable, except it's the 1200 Mark II, which you can see there. But this one does 78s, and that's why I like it. So we'll just go over to that one a second. This is my Audio-Technica AT-PL120. And it's not a bad turntable, actually. The difference with this one is, as against the Technics, if you push the two buttons together, you get 78, which is really cool. So right now I've got that set up with a Pickering V15 cartridge on it. If I can just undo it there. There we go. Difficult doing things one-handed. And there she is. That's the V15, if I can get it still and in focus, which is not easy. And I have different styluses for that one too. That's the, get it focused. Oh dear, sorry. Anyway, there she is. And I have a Shure cartridge for 78s in the background there, which I play more rough 78s on. That's my M78S there. Keep everything interchangeable. So back to the book then. So that's why I've got the information on that, because it's basically the same. If ever you need information about that turntable, you just look up that model. And then we get to the arms that I've got on my Grad 301, the SME arms. They're Series 2. And I've got all the diagrams there, so I can, because mine have been modified, and they're direct wide, because this was always caused a problem here, these connections. And this gives all the setup and everything else for it, and alignment. Service manual. All this stuff is freely available on the internet. So that's how I can remember what my arm is and what's involved, which is always very useful. The height adjustments and everything else. And now we're moving on to my Grando 78 cartridge. I'm starting to get into things. Yeah, this is my Grando 78 mono cartridge. That's the little slip here is the specs for it. And I've got it mounted in an antique SME head shell, which was quite expensive at the time, but I wanted to keep it authentic. So it just fits in there, which is a bit of a tight squeeze. Those come in two models. This is the better one of the two. And, you know, anyway, I put any specs, I think, on different videos that I've done, if you're that interested. And then I've got my Denon 103R, which is a moving coil cartridge, and that's playing right now on my Technics turntable. That, of course, being moving coil, needs a different input on your preamp. I'm using this Yamaha Natural Sound Stereo preamp here, and that's got a moving coil input on it, so that's what I'm running there. I've had this running on different decks, but because I can move everything around as I like, but it's easier for me keeping it on this one, because then it's just plugged in that one input. and it makes things a lot more simple. It tracks all right on that turntable, though it's kind of needs a better arm, but it runs pretty good. I also have, while I'm looking at that, I got this DBX. This can change the ambience and that on a record. It's kind of useful if you're playing 78s and stuff. Moving on, there's more blurb about the thing. I did a lot of research before I decided on that. This is the original leaflet that my dad had from when he had his Pickering. As I told you, that was one of the first ones he had. And that's very nice to have that original blurb, which is kind of cool. So I have a couple of Pickering, as I showed you. I have the two models, which is, I'll just show you those again. And they're the two different Pickering cartridges. Moving on from there, there's another piece of original Pickering information. My dad saved everything, and there's the box that his Pickering cartridge came in. And as you can see, this was in England, it says £10, 19 shillings and 9pence. That's before we even went metric. It's pretty cool. So it's got the original box where the cartridge used to go in, which is pretty good. So that little leaflet there was in that box. And there's some, and this little one here, which was pretty neat. And there's more, of course, all the information about the Pickering XV15, mounting instructions, a few of the adverts that they had. And then I kind of put a blurb so I could remember what it tracked at and how many millivolts it was. It says tracking force 1 to 3 grams on that V. I just copied this out the internet so I know that, say that just the AM, V15 AM Pickering, what the tracking weight is, 1 to 3 grams, and the mass and the frequency response. So just because I can never remember half the time. So, and this is, I was telling you about my father's V15 Mark II. This is the original page he took out of the magazine, and that at that time it was priced at £40, 15 shillings and 3pence, and that was a lot of money back then. Remember, my dad happened to save up for that. He could have brought other things, but he really loved his hi-fi, so he brought that. So I've made this in 2 parts, so please stay tuned for part 2, which will be coming up very soon.